So the next person on our program is a keynote from our very own state of Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and that's Patrick Mitchell. He's the Director of Apprenticeship and Work-Based Learning for Massachusetts. Patrick, take it away.
Great, thanks, George. And I just hopped on, so I'm excited to stay on for the remainder and learn a little bit more. It sounds like there's some listening that I'm going to be doing today. So just a little bit of background about myself. I've been with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for about 2.5 years now, and my background is in both apprenticeship and workforce development generally. I actually started working with, and I think this is relevant to the topics today, with community colleges about 15 years ago, developing pre-apprenticeship programs in construction with the city of San Francisco, and then moved on towards creating more healthcare career pathways with community colleges, and doing so regionally years later in tech, which I did for quite some time, about 7 years in San Francisco, during a lot of change that was happening then. And that actually brought me back into apprenticeship because we were really looking for a way to permeate the growing tech industry in the city. An apprenticeship, earn while you learn concept was really a great way to do it, which brought me here to Massachusetts in order to grow apprenticeship, not just in technology, but in healthcare, in manufacturing, and other areas that I'll talk about. So very excited to share a little bit about what's been happening. And I think highlighting Massachusetts in this summit is really important because we've gone through so much change, and we're really embracing the ideas of expansion and apprenticeship and equity in apprenticeship. And so that's what I'll talk about today. So just high level, Massachusetts is a state apprenticeship agency state. So we have our own statutes and regulations around registered apprenticeship. We have a 10-member apprenticeship council that guides our programming at a very high level, and oversight is through the Executive Office of Labor and Workforce Development, of which I work in, and that includes grant making, issuance of tax credits, and implementation of our USDOL apprenticeship grants. Generally in Massachusetts, we're overwhelmingly a construction-focused apprenticeship state with 90%. We also have significant presence in healthcare and in manufacturing. Actually, we've seen the most growth and expansion over the last 4 or 5 years, and then have ventured into several other different expansion industries that I will talk about. Prior to coming on board, the executive office led a significant stakeholder planning exercise that resulted in an apprenticeship expansion plan, which focused efforts on expanding apprenticeship into new industries, diversifying the apprenticeship workforce in all sectors, including construction, and really enhancing the services of apprenticeship from the Commonwealth. And these are some of the industries that we have focused on for expansion. As I mentioned, manufacturing has been the leader here. We've also developed programs in financial services, in life sciences, which isn't mentioned here. We'll have to update this slide, and healthcare, hospitality, transportation as well. So really focusing business development or apprenticeship business development in all of these sectors, but also coming to employers where they do have needs, and that's where we have seen advanced manufacturing. I caught one snippet of incumbent workers on the last presentation, and that's certainly the case for advanced manufacturing, where we're seeing apprenticeship used as a tool to promote and build talent within these organizations in order to grow, which has the great benefit of being able to backfill those positions with apprenticeship. So just a great model there for the manufacturing industry. So in addition to expansion, I mentioned we have a significant DEI strategy in place. This includes an apprenticeship EEO plan and very specific research and planning. I'll talk a little bit more about that later on in the presentation, as we try to ensure that apprenticeship grows inclusively and targets underrepresented populations who have not historically accessed registered apprenticeship. And the way that we've done this is really through USDOL grants. So these are all the grants that we've received over the years. Massachusetts was part of the first round of AAI grants that came out in 2016. I believe the proposals for that were in 2015. So we're going on about seven years here of a real focus in expanding apprenticeship. I was involved in an AAI grant in California and closed out the AAI grant here in Massachusetts. We've received SAE funding to those familiar with all of our acronyms, as well as ACE funding. And so I highlighted, or I gave some detail to the grants that we're currently implementing. And that's the Apprenticeship State Expansion Grant, the Apprenticeship Capacity Building Grant, and the State Apprenticeship Equity Expansion and Innovation Grant. These have all focused on really building out our expansion industries, being inclusive around diversity, equity, and inclusion, and promoting occupations in industries that align with our economic development agenda and or contribute to the quality of life of Massachusetts residents. So a lot of healthcare, education, and we're moving into clean energy as well with our SAEEI grant. We also have state funds that come through our legislature, which recently have increased to 1 million per year. These are usually what we consider pass-through dollars, so grant making to different entities implementing related technical instruction, which has been a proven way to really grow apprenticeship. And we also have our registered apprenticeship tax credit, which businesses who onboard apprentices can receive for 2 years at $4,000 per apprentice, and up to $100,000 annually per year per business. And there you go. There's the slide for it. So I think to focus on this expansion and an equity agenda, really what I came on board for and what we've done over the last 2.5 years is really restructuring how we do business, which was essential to be able to be adaptive, be responsive to more expansion industries. And that required moving from a compliance construction only focus to a customer service approach that included multiple industries. And so as part of this, I came on board to really revamp how we do business in Massachusetts around apprenticeship, including how we are approving quality programs. And to give you an indication of this, this was our structure when I came on board, a very hierarchical structure in a small staff. And over the last couple of years, we've doubled our staff and flattened the structure and really built out different units within the Division of Apprentice Standards, including grant implementation, business development, and apprentice outreach, which is not something we had historically done, focusing on the supply side. We had historically focused on being more responsive to business development, not even going out to businesses, but just being, I guess, being reactive. Also, really building out our quality assurance functions, growing staff there, and modernizing our operations. And as part of that, we launched an ePlace portal, and this is our version of Rapids, which is a customer interface. So all of our sponsors actually get on and register their programs and apprentices and go through our approval process, as well as be able to do all of our grant reporting and our compliance functions. So it's quite a robust system that we've implemented. We've been building it out and continually working on it for about 1.5 years now. And I'll talk a little bit more about the compliance functions because I think they're going to be really important moving forward for our equity agenda. So really just bringing apprenticeship in the 21st century here, using technology and updating our operations is key to really moving forward. And as I mentioned, this expansion and equity agenda. So a few of the highlights, primarily through grant making and primarily through USDOL funds, we developed apprenticeship sector hubs as well as apprenticeship placement services. And this has primarily been through our one-stop or what we call mass hire career centers, as well as mass hire regional workforce development boards. And this is really leveraging what our workforce development agencies are already really good at doing, working with participants, working with businesses, and bringing an apprenticeship component into that, really integrating it into existing service provision and service delivery. So really great way to scale where, one particular entity within government really doesn't have the ability to do. In addition to mass hire career centers, we've also provided grants to multiple nonprofits who are doing this. And we have a lot of participation by industry consortiums, which have been a key to scaling, which have been one of the drivers in expanding apprenticeship, particularly in life sciences and financial services, where having that peer-to-peer approach with other businesses has been key to apprenticeship adoption, and having that intermediary through that industry consortium really take on the work of the robust apprenticeship model to make it seamless, off the shelf for different businesses who really don't have the time, but need some type of new innovative talent development strategy that's going to get employees that they need now, but also reach populations that they potentially may have not reached before, particularly during this transition that we're seeing, the great work migration and so forth, where apprenticeship is really key to making sure that individuals are skilled up and able to be hired into the different opportunities that are available now. We also built out and stood up a statewide manufacturing sector intermediary, and that includes a mass hire career center working with multiple regions to really have a seamless single approach to how we offer manufacturing apprenticeship within the state, but business development takes place at the regional level. We also have new programs in life sciences in particular, huge industry here, as well as financial services, which I'll talk about later. An acute need in Massachusetts for childcare services. And so we developed apprenticeship around that and have different intermediaries in this space who are actually offering registered apprenticeship with different childcare providers. And then a significant effort in construction DEI, working with consultants and many contractors, sponsor intermediaries to build out ways in which we can create a more diverse and inclusive construction apprenticeship workforce. And then have developed MOUs and different partnerships with some known entities, including the UMass Institute for Inclusion, who is assisting the Commonwealth to create more accessible apprenticeship services overall, but also piloting a project for individuals with disability to access apprenticeship. So a lot of work underway, again, as I mentioned, a lot of it is through USDOL funding. One of the projects that we've undertaken, and this is about a year ago, is to build out pathways and to map them and to visualize them for our partners. And this includes in the Mass Hire Career Centers as well as education and employer interests. And so for each sector, be it healthcare, technology, et cetera, we've mapped out these career pathways and provided user guides on whether an apprenticeship is an appropriate workforce development solution for particular businesses, and just educating our different partners on apprenticeship in general and how apprenticeship is part of workforce development pathways. And so here's one example in the financial sector where we developed a credit analyst program, and this is with the Mass Bankers Association. We also worked very closely with a four-year institution as well as a community college to really map out what is needed in order to create a credential that is going to be recognized by industry. And I think we have a long way to go in terms of building out more of these occupations within these pathways. But it was a really great experience working with community colleges again, because if we're able to create programs, whether they're delivered directly by the community colleges or the community colleges recognize those credentials through credit for prior learning or other strategies, they can be articulated then for those individuals who do wish to pursue an associate's or bachelor's degree, where that type of educational background is not just preferred but required in some cases. So really trying to connect our apprenticeship programs here into the education system. And then finally, our apprenticeship future state in Massachusetts. We recently joined the Massachusetts Apprentice Network, actually just launched it in March, and had our first quarterly meeting about a week ago. And this is a partnership between the Massachusetts Business Roundtable, which represents most of the larger businesses in the state, the Boston Chamber of Commerce, and Accenture, who really led a lot of these development efforts and has done so in other states and large cities. And it's a great way to come together and again have industry-led development that helps businesses adopt apprenticeship, and then through different training partners, whether it's community colleges, nonprofits, creating that supply of prospective apprentices to take advantage of these new apprenticeship opportunities developed. We also, as I mentioned, developed a robust ePlace portal that all of our customers, i.e. sponsors, use to implement apprenticeship. As part of this, we have a quality assurance component that enables us to really focus on moving apprenticeships through at initial approval, and then having our compliance or quality assurance be able to really take deep dives within a year, within 2 years, depending what type of program it is, and ensure that the programs are efficacious, and not just that we set them up and see what happens, but that we're supporting them throughout, and that includes apprentice retention, which is very, very important, and implementation of USDOL requirements around EEO. So pretty significant effort that will be launched in July for that I think is really going to help continue to build apprenticeship in a really quality manner. And then finally, we have pending legislation before our state legislature that really moves to expand access to apprenticeship more by opening up the number of opportunities that apprenticeships can, that apprentices can take advantage of, as well as sustain our current efforts, our structure, our staffing, and then modernize what we've done thus far is maybe the tip of the iceberg. I think there's a lot that we can do in terms of bringing more seamless technology to businesses to really implement apprenticeship and make it as easy as possible. I think a lot of the conversation that I've had over the years is with businesses is that apprenticeship is there's a lot. It's complicated. It's difficult to implement, and so the easier that we can make it for businesses and the more seamless services that we can set up are really key, and so that's where Massachusetts is currently focusing its efforts, is building out these technologies, updating our operations, and obviously focusing on our expansion and equity agenda. But I'm happy to answer any questions, and I'll turn it back over to you, George.
All right, great. So at this point, Patrick, first of all, thank you for sharing your thoughts. If we have a question or two, do we have any questions in the Q&A? No open questions. So that's good. Sounds like you've answered everything that they want to do. So in this case, then, why don't we head in? We're supposed to at 12:30 head into the break. So I want to thank you for being here, sharing the kinds of things you're doing to, what I hear you say is that you're trying to move apprenticeship into the current era, trying to make it as streamlined, as low on paperwork as possible, make it easy to sign up, but also easy for your side to look at the EEO and these other elements to make sure that these things are actually performing. So thanks again for sharing what you've been doing.